Hi, my name is Melanie, and I'm going to be discussing the passage Making a Case for Rhetorical Grammar. So, the main argument discussed by the writer in the passage is that although modern day scholars regard grammar as simply a strict set of rules, it still has its place in education because it fosters critical thinking in students and encourages them to challenge social norms and really just think about the world around them more critically. I also included a direct quote from the passage that I feel really encapsulates the thesis, and it can be found in paragraph 3. I'm going to be discussing a few key ideas that I found while reading the passage that I feel closely relate to the thesis. The first one being rhetorical grammar as a way of thinking. So rather than focusing on grammar as a strict set of rules, it's important for teachers to frame it as more of a rhetorical tool that actually aids students in their writing rather than limit it. Students should learn about how their grammar choices influence things like emphasis, clarity, and overall how their message is conveyed in their writing. The second idea I want to discuss is getting close to language. So, rhetorical grammar assignments, such as the commonplace book assignment, which is discussed in more detail in the passage, encourages students to think critically by analyzing the writings of others and really focusing on their grammatical choices and how it aids them in conveying their message. This is especially important because students are able to take note of these grammatical choices made by other writers and use them in their own writing. The third idea I want to discuss is rhetorical grammar and how it can actually be empowering. So, although scholars feel that grammar doesn't align with their goals, um, grammar actually helps students critically understand writing from another perspective. It really just adds a layer to their understanding, and it's especially helpful in social commentary. And that is, of course, an important skill. Um, and it does relate to what modern day scholars are focused on, which is a more ethical approach to rhetoric. So, although they view it as outdated, and of course it has a history of discrimination, it should really be re-examined and reconstructed because grammar still has an important place in education. The first quote I chose, I feel closely relates to the thesis statement. The quote is, grammar skill and instruction are linked to cultural attitudes, beliefs, and assumptions. But an absence of attention to grammar instruction prevents us from considering productive links. Instead, we adhere to a normalized reflex against teaching grammar in the context of writing instruction. So, this sentence closely relates to the writer's thesis that grammar should really be viewed more as a rhetorical tool that aids writers rather than a strict set of rules that limits them. It does this by addressing why traditional grammar is flawed while still emphasizing that it has an important part in writing instruction. The second quote I chose for its rhetorical and grammatical effect, I chose the quote, learning how to recognize and reflect on language as made and made to work on people's lives is central to being able to use language strategically. The repetition of made really emphasizes that language doesn't just occur passively, but rather it is intentionally constructed by the writer. Um, the author chose to italicize made and made to work on, which also further emphasizes how the nature of language and how um, writing is not done passively. And um, it really encourages readers to pause and reflect on this idea. The author also chose to use passive voice, which I believe to be effective in this sentence because the attention is shifted onto the effects of language rather than who is actually writing or who is constructing it. So that is my presentation, and thank you so much for listening.